Welcome to Gracefully Graying. I am your host, Attorney Henry Gornbein. Today on Gracefully Graying, I'm very pleased to welcome as my guest State Senator Jeremy Moss, who is currently running for the U.S. House of Representatives for the seat that is being vacated by Haley Stevens, who is running for the U.S. Senate. So without further ado, let me welcome State Senator Jeremy Moss. Welcome.
Thank you so much. Glad we can have this conversation.
I look forward to it. First of all, why don't you tell your viewers a little bit about who you are and your background?
Yeah, so I'm a lifelong Oakland County resident. Went to school here, attend synagogue here, and serve this community in the Michigan State Senate. I currently serve as President Pro Tem of the Michigan State Senate, where I've taken on some of the biggest Democratic wins that we've achieved over the last term here, led the fight for passing the first gun safety laws in Michigan that are saving lives today, led the expansion of our civil rights law here in Michigan, so LGBTQ Michiganders don't experience discrimination in work or at home in their housing situation, and serve currently as chair of the Elections Committee, where I focused a lot of my efforts on reducing barriers to voting, increasing access to the ballot box. We enjoy 9 days of in-person voting before every election here in Michigan due to our efforts to write the law that implemented how that would work. So really have been a leader and a fighter in these really precarious times here in Oakland County for Oakland County families. This seat opened up as our Congresswoman made a decision to run for the U.S. Senate, and I still have a lot of energy and even enthusiasm for all of this work that we've done in the Michigan legislature, and want to continue this fight in places where decisions about our futures and certainly the futures of our seniors are being made at the U.S. Capitol. So got into this race with a great deal of support throughout the community. And we are running a strong campaign here to take this fight from Oakland County to Congress.
Okay, so was there something that really triggered your decision?
Yeah, we've really taken on big challenges in the state legislature and have had great success on delivering for our communities here back home. The problems in DC aren't getting less severe, they're getting more severe. And I think in this moment, we need to send our toughest and most tested fighters to stand up to what's been going on. I've been on this campaign trail now a year. It's hard to believe, but we're coming to the tail end of this primary campaign. And I've represented 15 of the 30 communities that comprise the congressional district. So I've been talking to constituents for many years about what's been going on. And specifically with what's been going on federally, I hear two common themes. Number one is this anguish about cost of living that includes groceries, gas, healthcare is a cost of living crisis. And of course, this alarm about what's going on with our democracy. Feels like we have very extreme voices that are trampling over our Constitution, eroding our rights. And so in this moment, I've developed a really strong record as a fighter in the state legislature. Really born and bred here in Oakland County, with these values, having grown up in our communities here, been very, very active civically here, and want to take this fight on our behalf to Congress.
Sounds quite compelling. If elected, what would be some of your goals? I know you'd like to hit the ground running, and I know Congress right now is, to say the least, very, very dysfunctional. So what would be some of your goals if elected?
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think some of the things that I'm a Democrat, but I think some of the things that are obvious are that the president rules with an iron fist, and it doesn't have any sort of check and balance from a Congress that basically rubber stamps all that he's doing. I think this Congress needs disruption, and that's what I intend to do. I've never been status quo. I've been fighting the status quo in Lansing. I've been a leading voice on taking on government corruption at the state capitol, including opening up government records for public scrutiny so you can know how decisions in Lansing happen. and how they're made. I think we need to have that same fight against corruption and chaos in Congress. One of the things I'm most passionate about is, as I alluded to earlier, is I chair the Elections Committee. I served in the Michigan Senate in 2020 when there were all these conspiracy theories and really, dare I say, lies about our election systems here as kind of the national spotlight descended upon Detroit. We defeated all of those lies. And again, we took over with a pro-democracy majority in 2022 in the legislature when I took helm of the Elections Committee. And we've reduced barriers to voting and increased ballot box access for Michiganders. So what are they doing federally? The president has said he's going to federalize Michigan's elections. He wants to push forward suppressive tactics like the SAVE Act, which would make it harder for people to register to vote. And we've seen the Supreme Court gut the core provisions of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So what did we do in the state legislature? We became the first legislative chamber, the Michigan Senate, to push a state Voting Rights Act to restore those protections for Michigan voters that were eroded federally. So with this kind of reputation now as a voting rights experts in this time where Trump is still peddling misinformation, if not outright lies about our elections, including name checking Michigan in that national speech that he gave a few weeks ago, I think we should send a voting rights expert to Congress. And the number one issue that I want to push forward is the John Lewis Voting Rights Act. It would eliminate any pocket of discrimination in terms of voting access of any area of our country. I say this a lot, voting rights secure all other rights. If we want affordable health care, if we want to tackle the cost of living crisis, if we want to invest in our infrastructure and our schools and our futures, we have to have representation that is ready to fight for the people that vote for that representation. So we need to secure ballot access so people can have their say in our democracy.
Senator Moss, back to the Voting Rights Act, one thing that people don't seem to understand, that if this was passed, it would defranchise millions of women for the simple reason that often when they marry, they change their last name. And so it could create chaos. And the other thing that people don't seem to understand is elections are not run federally, they're run on each state. So I don't know, it's a mess. And you're right, we're going through some very scary times. On another subject, as a senior, I am interested in preserving Social Security. And there's theories that it's going to run out unless something's done within the next, 6 years, 10 years. So what are your thoughts? How would you do that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the top concerns for people in this district is preserving this social safety net, whether it's Medicaid, whether it's Medicare, whether it's Social Security. We saw this Congress last year pass that big bill that actually rolled back some of those social safety net programs. The state legislature, my leadership included, stepped forward and restored those cuts from DC to Medicaid and to SNAP. So more than anything, a budget is a values document. You fund and prioritize what you value the most. I absolutely value protecting programs like Medicaid and SNAP, as we've done from the state level. And when I get to Congress, preserving programs like Social Security and Medicare. There was also a big tax shift in that big bill. Donald Trump gave a very large and generous break to some of the ultra wealthy in this country. Many of his allies, cronies, and friends were the biggest beneficiaries of the breaks, and they're sitting at the top. And those of the rest of us were saddled to make up the difference and pay for the rest. I believe if the wealthy, the ultra wealthy, pay their fair share and stop getting these generous breaks driven by Donald Trump, we would be able to have these programs be solvent. And so, we've been seeing this disparity, this growing divide between wealthy people and people who are struggling to make ends meet. If we can close that gap and have the wealthy pay their fair share, we would be able to save the lifeline for programs like Social Security and Medicare. Those are my priorities in saving those programs and making sure that those people who paid into them have the financial security to retire with financial dignity and security, and also make sure that their health care is there when they need it.
Those are very important priorities, especially what I'm hearing now and reading is the fact that premiums are going to be skyrocketing because the coverage and the federal subsidies are basically going away. So a lot of people are going to be shocked with bills in the coming months for not only their health insurance, but also for prescriptions. And it's just unbelievable what's going on. Let's talk about the cost of living. You got a situation where now we have a war going on in Iran. We have gas prices going up. But even before that war started in Iran, the cost of living was going up, despite the promises of Trump in Washington that things would go down. So what are your thoughts on that, Senator?
Yeah, I think a lot of this has been driven by unilateral action from the president that has had no checks, no balances, and Congress has given up a lot of its authority to make policies. I'll give two examples. You bring up the war in Iran. You can also talk about the intervention in Venezuela. Donald Trump is conducting foreign policy and interventions without conferring to Congress's constitutional role in authorizing these things. We have to reassert the War Powers Act. We cannot be paying for this war in Iran at the pump. Iran knows that by closing the Strait of Hormuz, we as American drivers are suffering as a result. And Congress has to reassert its authority to continue to figure out what is the direction to close out this war. Donald Trump's about to enter a 6th month of this war with no idea how to end it. That's number one. And number two, you look at his tariff policies. I talk to so many folks who are either struggling with their small businesses, even our largest manufacturing entities here in this district. So from small businesses to large businesses, and especially to us as consumers, we're paying for the cost of this erratic tariff policy. If it was consistent, if it was thoughtful, I think that maybe we could adjust and really protect homegrown industries here in the state of Michigan and in our country, but it's not. Our tariff policy changes based on what the president decides to post and repost on Truth Social every morning. That is no way to run the most comprehensive global economy in the world. And again, who's paying for it? You and me. When we go to the grocery store, when we shop at a small business. So on those two things, Congress must reassert its role on policymaking on tariffs and must reassert its role on the War Powers Act.
Well, how do you get that? I mean, the fact of life is Congress has really done nothing to impede the president. I mean, you've got right now a Republican majority that basically just whatever the president says, they do. They refuse to stand up to anything. They refuse to enact the War Powers Authority. They refuse to take many of the roles that Congress should have. And also the Supreme Court has enabled everyone as well. So don't get me started on my soapbox as well. Let's talk about security for seniors. We have more and more seniors who are subject to scams. You've got the fact that on the internet, there are so many scams. There are so many people who are predators against those who are aging. What are some of your thoughts on that issue as well?
Yeah, one of the marquee things that my office does in the state Senate that we've done for the last 10 years is we hold a senior resource fair right here in the district. It's one of my biggest attended events every year. So essentially we gather anybody and everybody who runs an organization that impacts our seniors, whether it's our utilities, whether it's our county services, whether it's AARP, whether it's any other thing that touches the daily lives of our seniors, and we put them in one spot at one time. And we turn out hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of seniors in the community to learn about some of the services that are available to them that they might not know about. Sometimes, it's just about connecting people with the organizations that are designed to serve them. We also, for the last several years, have had Dana Nessel, our Attorney General, as our special guest. And so she talks about these ever evolving scams, that change based on whatever new gimmick or gag or trick they can play on vulnerable populations like our seniors. And we basically give a 101 on how to avoid being falling to a victim to somebody who wants to prey on our senior communities. So the most important thing I do is I get in the community and we talk about this. So hopefully we'll continue this senior summit program that we call it once I'm in Congress. But also, absolutely, we have to continue to go after bad actors who exploit people. I've led on some of this in the legislature. I've been fighting to strengthen Michigan's price gouging law so that unscrupulous businesses don't overcharge prices of consumer goods, especially during a state of emergency. And I've also had legislation that is moving through the Michigan Senate to continue to enforce taking on robocalls, those annoying and oftentimes exploitive robocalls. We want to give more resources to our Attorney General's office to go after those bad actors who try to bilk you, try to find out your sensitive personal data, your financial information, and exploit you. So we're doing everything we can to put forward consumer protection measures that would protect our seniors from being preyed upon and falling victim to a scam.
Senator Moss, another issue that impacts all of us more and more is climate change, which the current administration seems to call a hoax. But you've got more and more forest fires burning out of control. You've got more severe hurricanes, more heat issues. I mean, it's real and it's everywhere. And for some reason, nothing is being done. It's being ignored. What are your thoughts on that issue, Senator Moss?
Yeah, I'm part of this generation that definitely feels the urgency on climate change. You can just look at what happened this last month in Michigan, right? The other week, our sky was basically on fire due to the Canada forest fire winds coming down here. We've had 2 weeks of very intense heat here in July that were 2 weeks of 100-degree weather. And then we had torrential storms that knocked people out of power for several days here. So first and foremost, we got to tackle the effects of climate change. We've pushed forward on forcing and compelling our utilities to get to a clean and green standard here in the state of Michigan. So we are going to make sure that we are running a 100% renewable standard here with our utilities. That's number one. And number two, we got to make our infrastructure more climate resilient. It can't be that every time somebody sneezes, our power goes out. We have to make sure that our infrastructure, our roads, our expressways are resilient to flooding, that our grid is resilient to power outages. And as we continue to invest in our infrastructure here in the state of Michigan, we have to take into effect the impact of our climate, so that we aren't having our normal lives disrupted every time there's an ever increasing storm here in the state of Michigan.
Again, these are issues. There are a lot of issues that need to be tackled. Let me touch on another issue, and that is immigration. Quite candidly, I think that under the Biden administration, things went too far as letting immigrants come in unfettered through the border. But on the other hand, there have been so many proposals and nothing has gone anywhere. And now we've gone to the other extreme where you've got really an authoritarian regime towards immigration with regard to ICE and what's being done to just the raids, the killings. It's an obscenity, and it really is a blot on our democracy. So tell me some of your thoughts on the issue of immigration as well.
Yeah, it's a moral failure. I think that is some of the policies out of Donald Trump's administration that have impacted people the most. That this immoral and illegal immigration enforcement in and around our country is just absolutely un-American and unacceptable. So, in the state legislature, I've led on this issue. Me and a few other colleagues introduced bills earlier last year, even before all of the chaos played out in Minnesota, to rein in ICE's terror in our communities here. We introduced three pieces of legislation. I introduced the bill that would ban ICE agents from wearing masks for the purpose of concealing their identity in Michigan. We need to know who these law enforcement agents are. We cannot have masked vigilantes enforcing federal immigration law here in the state of Michigan. And on the opposite end of that, we have seen instances where non-ICE agents mask themselves and pose as ICE agents, because if ICE isn't required to wear a uniform or show their face, then bad actors exploit that and pretend to be ICE and wreak havoc in communities. So that's critically important. We've also introduced legislation to protect safe and sensitive spaces from unwarranted ICE raids. That includes schools, that includes places of worship, that includes hospitals, that includes courts. You know, we hear from the other side of this issue. You know, we want to make sure that everybody who goes through the immigration process does it the lawful way, does it the legal way. I certainly agree with that. But when they go through the legal way and they make their court dates, ICE is exploiting them. And ICE is picking them up when they're at the courthouse doing everything and meeting their appointments. So we want to protect these places from unwarranted ICE raids. In Congress, we should be doing a lot more. I don't believe that ICE has earned the public trust. And how do you have a law enforcement agency that operates that people can't trust and have faith in? They've trampled over the Constitution. They have eroded people's civil liberties. They have disappeared people to El Salvador without due process. They have separated children from their parents. And horrifically, they've killed protesters in the streets of American cities. I believe there's a rot in this agency from the top to the bottom that cannot be repaired under Donald Trump. And I believe that the agency should be dismantled. So in Congress, I will not vote for one penny to go to this agency to continue to conduct its terror upon American streets. We certainly need an interior agency that can produce safe outcomes, that can uphold people's rights. But ICE isn't it. And I don't think that there's a way for this department, this agency, to repair itself after all the damage that it's done.
Senator Moss, I'd like to go into a kind of a sensitive area, but I guess why not? And that is, there's been a tremendous rise of anti-Semitism, both on the extreme right and sadly on the extreme left. I've had the head of the ADL, Elisa Schmier, on this show, and it's like it's getting worse. And I guess what I'm asking you, as a member of Congress, what are some things that we can do to really tone down the rhetoric, for lack of the better word, and also to deal with some of the anti-Semitism and also some of the anti-Islamic issues as well?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm the only Jewish member of the Michigan Senate and would be the only Jewish member of our House delegation if elected. We are going through a period of an untenable rise in anti-Semitism here at home. I think that folks have been understanding, can understand what anti-Semitism looks like on the far right. It's neo-Nazis, it's the tiki torches at Charlottesville, it's white nationalism. I think that has been roundly called out, and I think people can comprehend that. But it's tougher to be able to penetrate what anti-Semitism on the far left looks like. Unfortunately, we experienced that here in our district at Temple Israel in March, where somebody who had the means and the motive to kill 100 Jewish children in a synagogue was only stopped by the training of the security personnel there. And his motivation was to maim and harm American Jewish children because of what's going on in Israel. And so, absolutely, this conflict in Israel, which is complicated and anguishing and evokes a lot of justified emotion and has produced Muslim pain and Jewish pain, Palestinian pain and Israeli pain, and they don't negate each other. But it has opened the door for Jewish Americans to be a target here at home, and that is anti-Semitism. I've been outspoken on it, whether it happens on the far right, whether it happens on the far left. We need to make sure that all communities, and you rightfully bring it up, every community of every religion, of every faith, of every background should be able to pray in a sanctuary in peace and not face antagonism based on exercising their First Amendment rights of expressing their religion. We've seen a disproportionate rise in anti-Semitism. The ADL tracks this, as you mentioned, and a large, oversized proportion of religious-based hate falls upon the Jewish communities here. So, I have a very unique perspective on this, being born and bred in the Jewish community here, and really can fight to express, what is an untenable rise in anti-Semitism. I'll tell you this, because I say this all the time, is we've been talking about some of these solutions here. There are only 15 million Jews in the world. And you think it's this large population. There are 1.5 billion Christians and 1 billion Muslims and only 15.5 million Jews. When a TikTok video, especially going on, with covering what's going on in the Middle East, but when a TikTok video puts out conspiracies and lies and traffics anti-Semitism, and that TikTok video gets 16 million views, there aren't enough Jews alive to be able to combat those conspiracies and lies one by one. So this really requires allies to step up. This requires advocacy even outside of the Jewish community to say, this rise in anti-Semitism affects me too. So I've been working on gathering communities together, propelling people to speak out, because that's the only way we can snuff out this untenable hatred here right now.
Senator Jeremy Moss, we have less than a minute left. What are some final thoughts you would like to share with our viewers and audience before you sign off?
Yeah, real quickly, because I see our clock is winding down. We have an important election on the primary on August 4th. We have an important election in November. Exercise your right to vote. We've made it easier with all the securities in our election systems in place for people to be able to go to the polls and have their say. In this moment, I think we need our most tested and trusted fighters representing our community. And that's why I'm stepping up with that record here to serve and hope to have folks' support in the primary upcoming.
Senator Jeremy Moss, candidate for the U.S. House of Representatives, I want to thank you so much for being my guest on Gracefully Graying. I want to thank our viewers and sponsors, and of course, Bloomfield Cable, for making Gracefully Graying possible. Thank you so much.